Hello, I'm Dr. Lynnette Simm, along with Lisa Burkhardt Worley, and welcome to Pop Talk, the show where you never know what topic is going to pop up. Sometimes in life, have you ever had to be the fighter? Today, we're going to interview a woman who has survived abusive relationships and conquered 2 incurable diseases. So our topic today is about healing. Lisa, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Lynnette. It's my pleasure to introduce Lorraine Bosse Smith. She's a dynamic speaker, energetic trainer, results-oriented consultant, professional recruiter, high-performance coach, a lot of titles, and fitness guru who transforms lives and companies. She is the author of 9 published books, including her most recent, Defy Your Diagnosis. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with minors in Marketing and Communications. And she is also a walking miracle. And we're going to learn more about her healing journey today on Pop Talk. Well, after reading your book, Defy Your Diagnosis, I really related to your story about self-image, Lorraine. You always wanted to be taller, thinner, and prettier. And part of the reason for your poor self-image is because your father died when you were only 13 years old. And you mentioned some research that says a girl's self-image is formed by the way her father treats her. So my father died before I was born. And so you can imagine how I felt about myself. It wasn't too good. It took me a while to lift my self-esteem. So how did you finally realize that you had value and that you are a beautiful person, and you are?
Well, thank you. You know, it took a while for me as well. And unfortunately, it took me down a path of dating every horrible, rotten man. The worse they were, the more attracted I was to them because I thought that's what I deserved. I really was punishing myself. And it was probably in my 30s. It really took me that long before. And it took my entire life basically falling apart before I could rebuild. And it really required me to just let go and receive what God believed of me. And, you know, there's still days where I have to go, okay, God, I'm not seeing what you see, but I trust you. Because, you know, it's not this quick switch and all of a sudden, you know, you've overcome your childhood traumas or your low self-esteem, like you said. But we really have to hold on to the truth, and we remind ourselves of whose we are and what he sees in us. And we have to claim those as our own and know that we are loved.
Well, you not only dated the wrong guy, but you married a wrong guy. So you had to heal from an abusive relationship. Sometimes, obviously, with low self-esteem, women tend to marry the wrong person. How did you begin to heal after the divorce?
You know, at the same time I was going through this horrible divorce, my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor, inoperable. And so I went through just a nasty, nasty divorce. It was really her diagnosis was the catalyst. He had forbidden me to see my dying mother. And that was it, right? I took the abuse, but as soon as you tell me I can't love on my mother who was dying, that was finally the last straw for me. And I got the courage to break free. And I remember having a conversation. My mom was all worried about me. You know, here she is, she's not going to be there for me. And I'm going through a divorce. And I told her, I said, if I live under a bridge, I will be happier than I have been in this abusive relationship. It was physical, it was emotional, it was spiritual, all levels of abuse. And I said, I already feel better. It was this lift off of me. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't have a job at the time. My mom is dying, but I finally felt, it wasn't just, you know, going to church and reading my Bible, but I felt it in my body, and every ounce of my spirit knew that I was in God's hands. And so it was a very real strength that every day he was lifting me up to say, it's going to be okay. And so that process helped me. And I'm a visual person. You're going to laugh at this, but I had this visual because I'm crying, emotions, and, your life is in shattered pieces. Well, God showed me this visual of shattered pieces all over the carpet. And he said, Lorraine, get your vacuum out. And I'm like, what? So I get the vacuum out, in my visual. And he says, vacuum all that stuff up. Just, it's going to be gone. He says, trust me that what is left is what you need. And really what was left was my relationship with him. And that's all I needed, was to know that he had me in the palm of his hand. When I was too weak to stand, he'd lift me up. And, I physically went through some serious stress with those two events. I dropped down to 98 pounds, and I'm about 5'10". So, my organs started shutting down. My hair started falling out. And so it was a very real physical strength that God gave me to get me through that. And I had to rebuild. And that's really where my journey of wanting to help other people manage stress and heal their lives came, is that I finally kind of hit the bottom of myself and had to rebuild a new Lorraine.
Yeah, I think of a verse, Philippians 4:13, that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that sounds like how you got through this time, and you got through some of the physical ailments that you suffered because of stress. Stress is a terrible thing. And I know I can tell you're a type A person, as I am. And so, because you have all these titles. And so us type A people can be more stressed out than others, because we are always high achievers, and we just push ourselves. And so it is only with that foundation that you're talking about, that foundation of Jesus Christ in our lives, starting every morning with him, that we have the strength to get through the day. Because when you're so tightly strung, like I know I am, anything can snap you, just something that you didn't expect can come along and just take you down. So I think it's great that God helped you so much. And you, of course, learned some valuable ways to heal emotionally, but there was also physical healing that you experienced 2 times over. In 1999, you started to experience some very strange symptoms. Tell us about those symptoms and what you found out.
Yeah. So, rebuilding my life, went through all of that tragedy, and then physically started having bizarre symptoms. My joints and hands would swell. I'm a size 6 1/4 ring. My hands swelled up to size 10. My feet, 2 shoe sizes bigger. And my joints felt like somebody was hitting me with a baseball bat. My muscles, all of a sudden, I couldn't walk up 2 steps on the staircase. I couldn't hold a glass of water. I had night sweats. I was changing my pajamas 3 times a night, literally just soaked. I had weird flashes of light and memory loss and fog. I mean, I'd sit at my computer and 45 minutes would go by and I didn't know what I was doing. I had doctors tell me, you're just getting old. I was 30 years old. Right? And so countless doctors, countless tests, and everything said, you're healthy. So, it must just be in your head. Meanwhile, I kept getting worse and worse. So 6 years went on, and, my life was, hugely impacted. Things that I love to do were getting, very difficult. I still pressed on. You said I am that type A personality. I take the pain, put it in a box. Well, all of a sudden I ran out of boxes and storage space, and I just couldn't go on. And God brought me to a doctor who said, and it was actually a chiropractor. He says, I just went to this conference and they were telling us about Lyme disease. I think this is you. Well, that led me to then research and then go to my primary doctor, and lo and behold, I had Lyme disease. Lyme disease is when you get bit by a tick that has the bacterial infection and passes it on to you. And the good news is if you catch it quick, it's just antibiotics, 2 weeks, you're done. Unfortunately, it had made its way into my DNA. So it was overtaking my systems. And I, took 3 years to fight to get rid of it, right? And we have since learned that it's just as difficult as cancer to diagnose and to fight, because what you're trying to do is kill it off without killing the host. And I can attest that the treatment was worse than the actual disease, because when they die off, the bacteria excrete this poison into your system, and it just makes you so sick. So I got worse for 3 years. Then after that, the war was won, but the casualties were all over the place. So I had to rebuild my health, my well-being, and so it has been a long journey. And I have to say, it is still ongoing. We've learned that those toxins, when they released, mess with your brain. And so I'm now having issues where my brain is malfunctioning and not processing certain hormones correctly. So I've gone from someone who was very fit and thin to I've put on weight that I never thought I'd put on, because my brain is not operating correctly. So all of that made me lean into God even more. I had to use the same, faith, foundation of faith. I had to trust him, and I had to be bold enough to decide that God wanted to heal me. And again, we don't know what his version of healing looks like, right? There's different healings, but my book is really that journey of, believe in a full recovery, do what you can, partner with the right people. I have the Healing Trinity model that I share that has really been impactful. I've heard tons of people say it's changed how they pray for their situation. So, I had to practice this. It's not just pie in the sky ideas for me. I still every day have to live out my own fit life formula that I share in my book.
Well, so like you said, you had 6 years of all of these symptoms, 3 years of horrible recovery. But obviously long-term, spanning almost 19 years trying to figure all of this out. How did you cope with the anger? And how might you have had so much anger? I mean, obviously, who are you angry with? Are you angry with God? Are you angry with the doctors? Share.
That's a great question, because as I was on the tail end, the bacterial infection was gone, right? All the tests said, yay, we beat the disease, right? Which, most doctors tell you there is no cure, right? And don't believe it, because there is. Through God, again, we can do all things. However, I wasn't getting better. I was still having all of the symptoms, and I had been working with a specialist in Lyme. So if somebody's out there who has these bizarre things, find a Lyme literate doctor, right? And he was a Christian, and he said, Lorraine, he says, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but you have something you need to let go, because it's preventing you from healing, something emotional. You need to check in with God and find out what that is. Well, okay, doctor, that's what it was. It was anger. I was angry that someone like me, who eats right, exercises, manages my stress, is very disciplined, got a disease that I didn't deserve. I didn't eat myself obese. I didn't smoke myself with cigarettes to get cancer. A bug bit me out in nature. So to answer your question, I was angry at everything. I was angry at nature. I was angry at God. I was angry, just that it happened. And the first step was acknowledging that anger. I didn't think I was an angry person, but I was. And I held on to that. And I had to do some work, went through some classes at church, of inner healing, to, write out and journal and pray and let go. And I was shocked at how deeply rooted, doctors who had told me, I had doctors tell me, well, you're just going to die of cancer. I don't know what else it is, so that must be it. I mean, just, I had to let it all go, because it wasn't helping me. It was that barrier to the next, step of finally feeling better. And, I, once again, had to let it go to God, and, how we say, put it down at the foot of the cross, right? Well, then I take it back. And then I go, okay, put it back. And each time I took a little less back. I'm human, again, it's not this check this box off and life is perfect. It took me stages of give and take before, he finally said, are we done now? Can I just carry this for you? Really, trust me, I can carry this for you. You've been through enough. Let it go. So, that's, a big chapter in my book is let it go and let God. And it sounds so easy, but it was a struggle, especially when you're a person who, controls and gets things done, achiever, to sit there and just, say, okay, I release it. And I love that word. That's a word that I've learned to embrace is release, right? Because losing something tells our mind, I got to go find it again, right? I didn't want to lose it. I wanted to release it. And so that's a very freeing word. And so journaling and prayer and my church fellowship really helped me to process through that. And, I know enough now that every once in a while that still might fester up, that if I would have had the right doctor, I never would have been through any of this. And so I have to, process it all over again and just say, I don't want any more negativity in my life. I've had enough. So.
Yeah, it reminds me that the greatest tests that we have in our lives create the greatest testimonies. And I also think of another verse, Romans 8:28, that says all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. And so what God I see has done in you, Lorraine, is he's provided, he's drawn you closer to him and into his presence. He's called you to be more reliant on him, but also he's used this journey of yours to reach other people. And that's what I see. And you did a lot of soul searching. In fact, at one point, you really cleaned house. And I mean in relationships, healing of relationships. What did you decide to do concerning the people that you had allowed into your life?
Yep. And I, just attest to what you just said, because that's been a big part of my journey is, God uses us, and this is that mental side, right? We have the emotions, we have the physical and the spiritual, but mentally, I had to know that everything is used for God's good, right? So even though I suffered, even though I had this pain, I truly believed God had a purpose for it. And I wouldn't be speaking. I wouldn't have 9 books. I wouldn't, be touching the lives that I have, because I wouldn't have had a story, right? I have a story and I can encourage and help others. But through that journey, I started to realize that I'm a giver, and I by my nature and my story, I want to help everybody. Well, there are people who want to just take. And I call them vampires. And, there's an assessment in the book that, you can kind of look and identify, those relationships, because they're not all equal. In the age of social media, the word friend, right? We think everybody's our friend. Yeah, well, no. There's different layers of friends. And through my journey, I learned the hard way that not everybody can love you. Not everybody has it in them to support you during a difficult time. I was shocked at how many people, when I went through my divorce, were like, oh, it might be contagious. Good Christian people saying, I don't even want to be around you. People who told me I was going to burn in hell for getting divorced from an abusive person. Okay, check them off the list, and it didn't mean I didn't care. And it didn't mean I didn't still wish, God to love them and be with them. But I had to start protecting myself, because I learned, here's a high energy person who now has limited energy because of what I physically have been through. And add to that, as we age, it changes as well, right? So we only have so much of us to go around. And I found that I was exhausting myself, giving it to the wrong people. People who just took it, who didn't ever even ask. Do you have a friend out there who never asks how you're doing? There's something wrong with that relationship. You have to believe that you deserve better. So it went back to my self-esteem, that I didn't think I deserved a well-balanced, healthy relationship. So I started kind of removing some folks. Some folks I just kind of let it fizzle out, because guess what? I was the only person who ever did anything. So when I stopped, they disappeared. And there it went. And then there were other people that I cared enough to say, things have to change if we're going to move forward. And some of those were family members. If we're going to have a relationship, it needs to be mutually respectful, meaning you can't dump your crap on me because you feel like it. You have to reciprocate. There has to be a back and forth, give and take. And so I went from huge base to quality. And you know what? I'm happier. Because really, who has the energy for 5,000 friends, right? We see that on our social media page. Seriously, you'd have to be awake every hour of every day and, reaching out to all of those friends. And so I think we've done a disservice in a way with social media. We've devalued that word a bit, and we have to work hard at building those relationships, connecting. And I talk about that. It isn't just discarding people, but it's investing, right? You don't take withdrawals out of your bank account unless you've put deposits in. And so we each have to remember we need to work with each other.
So you're transforming your life and your friends. But somewhere in all of that, you meet your husband.
Yeah.
So tell us how that happened.
I went through the divorce, lost my mom, and I moved. I literally picked up, I was in Colorado at the time where I grew up, and God's like, go to Washington. I'm like, Washington? I hate rain. I hate clouds. Are you kidding me? Went to my pastor, and he's like, I think you need to go. And if it was a bad burrito and it wasn't meant to be, you can always come back, right? So I go, and I'm at the health club, and I'm on a treadmill, and this guy keeps going, hi. And I'm this kind of workout. I'm working out, darn it, don't you know it? And he persisted, and I finally stopped my treadmill and go, what? What do you want? And he's like, hi, and so that was my husband. I was totally done with men, totally not interested, but God brought this amazing person, and we just celebrated 22 years. And, we've had our tough times like any couple, but when you meet someone who allows you to truly be yourself, there are sides of me that I discovered that I didn't even know I had. And part of that was to realize that I was a writer. I mean, I had been given this gift since a child, but I was free to explore it, free to say, hey, maybe this is something God wants me to do. I was given the freedom to expand and to breathe. I wasn't living on eggshells and worrying about, the other person and what they, do to me. So it has been an incredible journey, and so thankful for the gift of him.
I wish we could end on that happy note, but you did suffer another health setback. And after 2 years, again, of being misdiagnosed, you found out you had hypothyroid disease. How did you defy your diagnosis in this case?
Yeah, so the thyroid, it's not, I don't even know what to call it. I try not to call it hypothyroid, but my thyroid is whacked out. It's to the brain. It's not functioning. I also had rheumatoid arthritis. And so I encourage people, get the book. The Healing Trinity really, truly made a difference for me. But I had to develop new protocols. I had to once again say, God, I trust you for healing of my body. I rebuke that I am not going to get over this. And, God has faithfully walked that journey with me. And some people look at my life and say, oh my gosh, you've been a wreck and how horrible. And I go, I consider it a blessed life, because you know what? More than most people, I have felt God's presence. I have been with him. I have walked with him. And I know that he loves me.
I just love your life mantra, never give up.
Yes.
And so how can you never give up when you can barely stay above water? I mean, life tends to really kind of take us down. So how does your mantra help us?
It helps because our brain remembers what words we use. And so choosing your words carefully matters. So never giving up, set your brain up to say, we're going to keep pressing on. Then you speak to your spirit, which is aligning yourself with God, and allow God's spirit to fill you up. So, it's using every part of our being to be positive. And you know what? We need each other. So seek the right people. That's the key. The right people who can love you, lift you up when you need it, keep you moving when you have those dark days and you're sitting in a corner bawling your eyes out. I've had them. But know that God is walking with you.
We have just about a minute left, Lorraine, but could you just give a couple of sentences about how important it is to trust God? Because it seems like you trusted God throughout all of your journey and everything that happened to you. Can just a quick couple of lines.
Yep. For us to defy any diagnosis, to overcome our obstacles, there can be no room for fear. You truly have to eliminate it and place it with faith. And it's different for each of us. It, may be reading your Bible a lot more. It may be, attending some church workshops, spiritual retreats, a lot of prayer. Nature is a way for me every day to seek God's face and to listen. We spend so much time, blah, 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 blah. We need to listen. Hear what God has to say for you, and He can help you defy your diagnosis.
Well, it does say fear not 365 times in the Bible. So we obviously know that when we are weak, God is strong, and that's where He wants us to lean into. If you want to reach Lorraine Bosse Smith, you can do that and be able to find all of her books, including her Defy Your Diagnosis, a book of wisdom, at her website, www.lorrainebosse-smith.com. And we'll have that at the bottom of the screen for you as well. It was such a pleasure to have you. So much more we could go into detail. But thank you so much for staying with us and talking with us and our audience here at Pop Talk.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lorraine, and we've really enjoyed this, and I think we've helped a lot of people. And we'd love for you to reach out to us here at Pop Talk, a program produced by Pearls of Promise Ministries. It's a ministry all about helping women like Lorraine thrive. You can email us at info@pearlsofpromiseministries.com. We're on Facebook. We're also on Twitter at Pop Talk Media and on Instagram at Pop Ministries.
And of course, we always want to thank our sponsor, Grace Point Media. So for all of your media needs, you need to go to gracepoint.media.
So that's it for Pop Talk today. We're just ordinary girls
who God is turning into pearls.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the recording going. That's the end of the actual radio recording. I think we'll be okay. We're a little over, but like I said, with radio, we can fudge it a bit. But would love to, one of the things, Lorraine, I don't know if I told you this, but I actually have a friend who is a popular Christian author, award-winning Christian author who suffered from Lyme disease, and she's in Memphis, Tennessee. And did I tell you about her? I'm going to try to connect you with her. Her name's Lisa, another Lisa, and I think it'd be a good encouragement for the two of you to talk to each other.
I just wouldn't wish it upon anybody, and the numbers are staggering. It doesn't make the news, but that really is destroying more people than anything else we have out there, because the latest numbers are 50% of all autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, MS, depression, are Lyme disease not diagnosed, which means they're never going to get better because they're being given immune depressants instead of killing the bacterial infection. And it breaks my heart because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And we are just so far behind in diagnosing it still.
Would you suggest that those that have an autoimmune maybe go and get the test to see? I mean, how invasive is taking the test to see if you have Lyme disease?
The standard CDC test is not very effective, right? It's about 30% accurate. It's not good. So you have to pay because your insurance doesn't cover for a $200 test. But to me, it would be worth it just to know, do I have it or do I not? So that you know if you're on the right course or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're one of those who all the drugs that they're giving you don't seem to be working like they should. And that was my case. Is everything they tried on me, oh, this is a miracle, didn't do it for me. Well, it's because it wasn't targeting the right thing.
Yeah.
And once we targeted the right thing, this is the other hard part, is when people seek help and get worse, right? They feel worse. Mm-hmm. A lot of them bail on the treatment because they felt better on the immune suppressant drug, but that disease is going to get worse and worse and worse. And it does attack the heart. People are dying of heart attacks. Mm-hmm. Bacteria attacks the heart muscle. It attacks the brain. And so, it's a very dangerous path to go. And so, I have some folks, I stay in touch with when they're in that phase of getting worse. And I just say, call me when you have that bad day, just to hear a loving voice. And that's kind of the ministry side of this. I don't get paid, but, I just don't want these people out there alone suffering.
Yeah, so I know you're helping. I was going to say, I know you're helping a lot of people, Lorraine, and I just think that's so admirable. A couple of years ago, I had a scare for an autoimmune disease, and I actually had a false positive. I went to the doctor. I said, I really want to be tested for autoimmune because I still have it. I wake up really stiff in the morning and, kind of almost congested, and I don't really feel good for about 2-3 hours. And so I don't know what's going on, but I did test positive the first, with this test for Scleroderma, which everyone says, oh no, that's the worst, one of the worst things you can have. Well, then I went to the rheumatologist and he said, no, you don't have it. And so imagine, that's something that happens too when you're tested for autoimmune, that maybe you might test positive when you really don't have it. Have you experienced that with people?
It depends on the doctor. I've seen a lot of bad doctors. And there's supposed to be a requirement. So like rheumatoid arthritis is what they kept trying to tell me I had back in the day because my joints were all swollen. Well, you had to have 7 markers to say definitively you have it. I had 1, which was joint swelling and pain. And so one doctor's like, well, you have it. But my medical test told me I didn't, right? Bless you. So you have to, this is where it gets hard, is you have to be your own advocate, do your own homework. And I really, really encourage people, find the right medical person who aligns with you, who says, I don't want to just throw drugs at your, condition. I mean, I'm not saying drugs are bad, but they want to get to the root. They want to heal you, not just, suppress things. And so that's a hard person to find when, unfortunately, drugs have become the common easy answer. And so you have to do some of your own work, but it really requires the right partner. And if you don't like what somebody told you, you go to the next. I mean, I can't tell you how many doctors I've seen through the years. But, again, they kept trying to diagnose me with things that I just knew in my spirit wasn't the problem. And, the really kicker of it was 3 days after a hike, we had been covered in ticks. And so 3 days later, I had the flu and I had the aches and I had the pains. And I said, I have Lyme disease. Went to my doctor and he says, no, you don't. And because, I was raised, you just don't question doctors. And so that has been a journey for me, is to learn my own voice with medical doctors, not to be mean or rude or think I know more than them, but I know me, right? And I know what's right and what was wrong. And, that small voice that God gives us, that the spirit that lives within us, just kept getting louder and louder to say it's not, what you're pursuing, and finally found out what it was.
And what fitness routine are you doing? Because in all of your titles, fitness is one of them, fitness trainer.
Yes. So
what are you into?
Yes, I teach fitness classes. With COVID, we've had to change that. The indoor facility that I've been working at still does not hold classes. So I've been out in the park, and I'm doing it's not new, in the sense of the industry, it's just new class to change it up. Interval. So we do something high intensity for a few minutes and then do something very low, like squats and lunges, power moves that use the muscles, keeps the heart rate up. But that change of your demand really helps to challenge the brain, which is what I'm working on right now, is I have to help it heal. And then I teach yoga, and it's a very Christian based. I call it yoking ourselves to God always.
Love that.
It's breathing, right? And I say, if all we did was just breathe, we're going to feel better. But, we stretch and we alleviate pain and we spend time just listening. Like I said, we don't realize how much of our life we talk to God. We pray, we talk, we this, we that. Just listen. Let it come into your spirit. What does he have to tell you? What does he want to impart to you? And so we definitely need that right now with everything going on in the world. Our minds are nuts and crazy and the tension. And so it's real important. So, I have fitness videos that I've created and a lot of YouTube through this COVID created classes you can do in the safety of your own home. My YouTube channel is The Total You One, the number one.
I'm going to look for that.
Total You One. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
hold on. Let me put that down there.
Yes, I started doing some training. I actually hired a trainer recently, and he's doing what you're talking about. It's like resistance training.
Yes.
Like it's totally different from the way I worked out in my old days. I like going on the elliptical and doing some Nautilus weights, right?
Yep.
And this is totally different. This is like sitting on a wall for 20 seconds that really hurts, and using bands and things like that. So, but it is, like you say, it's training your mind to do things differently. And their theory is if you build muscle mass, you're going to lose more weight. And so I'm trusting because I want to lose weight. And and Dr. Lynnette has really lost a bunch of weight, and through some of the stuff that she's been doing. And so she's my I don't want to say idol, but she's somebody I want to follow after. And we're the Thin Pop team.
Yep.
It's just, trying to get rid of some of the stuff that we don't necessarily need. We want, we like, dairy is a huge creator of inflammation. So my husband and I, after his heart attack, we don't partake in dairy, which is really hard, especially because I love cheese
and ice cream.
And ice cream. I haven't had ice cream in like 3 months now, which is very hard.
Good for you.
And then we stopped eating beef, pork, and chicken. So we eat fish, a lot of fish and shrimp and things like that.
Yep.
And then, but more importantly, we made sure that we have vegetables, whole vegetables in every single meal.
Yep.
Every meal. So, so that's
love my Finally Fit and Fit Over 50 book, because in it I give you health plans based on how God has wired you with your personality and Finally Fit. And then Fit Over 50 is really those stages of life, what we should be focusing on. But on the nutrition side, it's, I need to make changes. Here's good, better, best. Because sometimes it's hard to just go cold turkey. You had a motivator with your husband, but you need to start off slower. And I give you, here's, where to start. And when you feel better with that, then you move over to this category. And then ultimately, like you said, get rid of all the dairy and, those kind of.
Yeah, cold turkey. Let me tell you, the only way we were able to do that was through accountability. I literally had to take a picture of every meal that we had and show it to a coach so that they could say, good job, or add more of this, or, et cetera, et cetera. And, 25 pounds later, I'm like, that's great. It's really great. Problem I'm having, and maybe you might have a little help right here, just a little sugar. I'm so addicted to it. It is so, so hard.
Yes, I'm going to echo that, Dr. Lynnette, because
everything. I mean, one of the things that
everything
is eliminating sugar again. I kind of go through phases, and I eat well, but trying to, really get in that best category. It's in every condiment. It's in foods that you never would think of. Like forever, I've done rice milk because I don't do dairy. Rice milk is full of sugar.
Wow.
Who did this? Why do you have to put a bunch of sugar in a plant-based product, right? So, in yogurts, I've had to spend a fortune on very organic, zero sugar yogurt. It tastes like nothing, but that's okay. I need the protein. And then I put some fresh berries on it to get some fiber. But, it's just shocking. And so, feed yourself berries and things that are healthy, sugar tasting items, but the natural kind, so that you don't have the cravings, because it's a real thing. Sugar, we've been fed sugar since we were kids, and it tastes so good.
I tell my husband I'm a recovering addict, and I fell off the wagon came Halloween.
Yes, and I'm trying to eliminate sugar from my diet, but last night we had a little leftover chocolate pecan pie, and I had to take a bite of that, which I know is wrong, but I know it's kind of an addiction. But one of the things I'm doing is I like kind of something sweet in the morning, like cereal, and so I started eating some oatmeal, and my trainer said, eat it with peanut butter, like a tablespoon of peanut butter. Don't put the sugar in it. And so I actually think it's not too bad.
Butter, you have to watch. High in sugar.
Peanut butter is high in sugar?
Careful. Yeah, you got to watch how they make it. Yeah, you just have to look on the ingredients and if it's something they add to it.
Things that should be healthy, they pour in. Like if something says this is low fat, they've added more sugar. If they say 0 sugar, they've added the fat. So it's really hard to find products. And really the bottom line is anything that's packaged, canned, frozen,
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for being a part of this Pop Talk broadcast, this kind of extra bit that we do. And I think it's been a great extra few minutes. I'm sure a lot of people have learned about nutrition from this segment. And so thank you again. It's been great meeting you. I'm going to just go ahead and stop the recording.